During the earthquake, in order to protect my wife and son, I was crushed under a stone slab. When I was hooked up to all sorts of tubes all over my body, my wife held our son and said to me, "You don't know this yet, but Daniel was released from prison a year ago. The child is his." Daniel was a gangster outside of school and my wife's first love back then. Because of her relationship with him, she fell from a ballet fairy to a rebellious girl. I kindly tried to dissuade her, but I was beaten up and sent to the hospital by her gangster boyfriend. My mother felt sorry for me and told everything to her parents. She was forced to transfer to a semi-military management school. The gangster held a grudge because of this, and he drove drunk and killed my mother. He was sentenced to prison. Just before I died, I realized that she married me just to get revenge on me for causing her and her first love to be separated for so many years. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in my senior year of high school. This time, I will let her get what she wants. Olivia. Daniel has brought you food again. Amidst the teasing voices, I slowly opened my eyes and looked dazedly at the scene in front of me. It was the familiar classroom and the desks. I wasn't lying. In a hospital bed, and I didn't have tubes inserted all over my body, I immediately realized that I had been reborn. The sports committee member sitting by the door carried a box of delicate small cakes and placed it on Olivia's desk. Olivia was sitting in front of me. She turned around and put the cake on my desk. "Ethan, you know my mom doesn't let me eat sweets, so I'm counting on you." She blinked her eyes, her voice soft. "Why do you look like you haven't woken up yet?" As she spoke, she waved her hand in front of me. "TSK, you have such a good relationship with the class monitor." The sports committee member said SOURLY. Olivia and I had always gone to and from school together, and we had been teased by our classmates a lot. At first, Olivia always said to others that she and I were childhood sweethearts who grew up together. But in fact, I was just the son of their family's nanny. My mother had been a nanny for Olivia's family for many years. When I was 7, my parents divorced. Olivia's parents were kind-hearted, seeing that it was not easy for my mother to raise me alone. They let my mother and me move into their house. So, I did grow up with Olivia, but I was living under someone else's roof. Olivia inherited her mother's excellent dancing genes and was a recognized talented dancer. She had a slender figure, a beautiful face, and was outstanding. She was a well-known, unattainable beauty in school. I used to be one of her many admirers, but I knew the gap between us and never dared to have any illusions. The only thing I could be proud of was my grades. Olivia's parents had been sponsoring my studies, and I didn't let them down. I always ranked first in the grade. Originally, Olivia was 1 grade above me. She performed poorly in the college entrance examination. Last year, she repeated a year and transferred to our class. Her parents asked me to help her with her studies in order to improve her academic performance. Naturally, I was more than willing, because only at that time could I sit next to her and talk to her a few more words. I even fantasized that if we both got into a university in Beijing, maybe I could gradually narrow the gap between us and then express my feelings to her. However, just when everything was developing as I had hoped, Daniel appeared in her world. Daniel's appearance not only disrupted the whole school but also caused a slight ripple in Olivia's heart. As soon as Daniel came to school, he became a popular figure on campus. He was said to be the nephew of a school board member. He had an outstanding appearance and was unruly. He had always been disobedient and often hung out with a group of gangsters outside of school. He had been expelled from several schools because of violent incidents before and had repeated a grade for a year. He finally managed to get into our school through his uncle, the school board member. Just last week, he punched and shattered the glass window while the dean was lecturing him. In the end, dozens of teachers jointly proposed to expel Daniel again. Even so, he was still the dream lover of many girls in the school. When Daniel first transferred in, he chased after Olivia at the instigation of his friends. At first, her reaction was very cold. She thought he was just playing around. The gifts he sent were either thrown into the trash by her or given to me to deal with. Until he openly chased her for more than a month, I could tell that she was hesitating. She even said to me during the sports meeting, when I was running the 1,500 meters, that he accompanied me the whole way and even handed me water. "Ethan, he doesn't seem to be as bad as the rumors say, right?" I still remember that at the sports meeting, Daniel held a microphone on the rostrum and confessed to her in front of all the teachers and students in the school. The principal's face turned green with anger. They were punished to stand on the rostrum for an afternoon for everyone to see. I was sitting on the stage reading the manuscript while listening to him quietly telling jokes to Olivia behind me. When I turned my head, I saw her laughing, her face as pretty as a peach blossom, and I, on the other hand, felt extremely uncomfortable seeing that. I didn't say anything. Olivia pushed the cake towards me again. "If you don't reply to me, I'll take it as you agreeing." Just as she was about to turn back, I stopped her and asked, "Don't you want to eat it?" She was stunned for a moment, stared at the cake for a while, and then hesitated. You won't tell my mom, will you? Olivia's mother was a dancer herself, and had high expectations of Olivia. She had always strictly controlled her weight and didn't allow her to eat snacks, especially sweets. Olivia's mother had specifically asked me to keep an eye on her at school. Every time Olivia received a cake, she would ask me to deal with it later. She would also take a couple of bites to satisfy her craving, and then give the rest to me, asking me to keep it a secret for her. But now, I nodded and continued to do my physics problems. Only then did she feel relieved and picked up the cake, eating it in small bites with a spoon on her own desk. Of course, I wouldn't be a whistleblower. Meddling in other people's fates was the last thing I should have done in my previous life. Olivia didn't know that indulging in eating sweets was the beginning of her downfall. After school, Olivia and I walked out of the school gate side by side. We saw Daniel leaning against a cool motorcycle, tall and standing out from the crowd. He carelessly swung the keys in his hand and called out to Olivia, "Olivia, want to go out and have some fun together?" As expected, he was waiting for Olivia. Many girls cast envious glances at her as they passed by. I turned to look at her. The evening wind blew through her long hair like seaweed, revealing her slightly reddish cheeks. Olivia hesitated for a few seconds, then turned to me and said, "Ethan, help me tell the teacher that I'm going to have tutoring today. You're a good student, and they'll believe what you say." Yes, originally tonight was the time for her dance practice. Every time she practiced dancing, I would squat outside the dance classroom and do my homework. Sometimes I couldn't help but peek at her graceful figure through the window while she was dancing. Before I could answer, she trotted up to Daniel and sat on the back seat of his motorcycle. Daniel grabbed her hand and put it around his waist. She shyly pressed her head against his back, and he laughed with a carefree swagger. I heard him ask, "What's the relationship between this little follower and you?" "Just the son of my family's nanny," she replied. Hearing her words, I clenched my fists and lowered my head. In my previous life, she was also like this. She mercilessly drew a clear line between us in front of Daniel. But when she needed me, she took advantage of my feelings for her and made me help her. I knew clearly that she was just using me, but I was always willing to be used. Looking back, now, I was really stupid back then. Daniel put on his helmet and warned me, "Kid, I advise you to know your place. If you say something you shouldn't, watch out or I'll skin you alive." After saying that, he put on his goggles and rode away on his motorcycle. On this day, I didn't choose to go to her dance classroom to ask for leave from her teacher. I went straight back to Olivia's house. During this period, Olivia's parents were on a business trip, which was why Olivia dared to skip her dance practice. My mother was very surprised to see me come home alone. Seeing my mother standing in front of me, safe and sound, I couldn't help but hug her tightly. At first, she was surprised, and then she gently patted my back like she was soothing a child. "What a big kid you are, still so clingy to your mom." I will never forget the scene of my mother lying in a pool of blood. In my previous life, Olivia also fooled around with Daniel, just like today, and I obediently asked for leave from the teacher for her. Every time she went on a date with Daniel, she asked me to cover for her. She learned to smoke, drink, skip classes, and race cars from Daniel. She no longer had the heart to study. She ate sweets repeatedly, causing her weight to get out of control. This was discovered by Olivia's mother, who then shifted all the blame onto me, saying that I often bought sweets for her. As a result, Olivia's mother took out her anger on my mother and reduced her salary. Later, I really couldn't stand seeing her fall so low, so I spoke up to dissuade her, but she turned around and told Daniel about it. Daniel led a group of gangsters and beat me up so badly that I was sent to the hospital. My mother felt sorry for me. After learning the whole story, she told everything to Olivia's parents. Olivia's mother immediately transferred Olivia to a semi-military management school and kept a close eye on her. She was forced to break up with Daniel. Daniel held a grudge against my mother because of this. He drove drunk and killed my mother. Since he was already an adult, he was sentenced to prison, but his powerful legal team still managed to reduce his punishment to the minimum. Afterwards, Olivia also expressed her deep guilt to me. Daniel's family compensated me with a large sum of money, and Olivia's family continued to support me in going to university and studying abroad for further education. When I returned to China after completing my studies and met Olivia again, she had already become a famous dancer in the country. She was still the Olivia in my eyes. At the beginning, our friends tried hard to bring us together. I knew that her actions had indirectly caused my mother's death, but because I had such a strong favorable impression of her, I thought that she hadn't done it on purpose. So, I let go of my grudges and married her, fulfilling my wish from my youth. But just when I was immersed in the happiness I thought I had, an earthquake struck. In order to protect Olivia and our son, who had just turned 1 month old, I was crushed under a stone slab. When I was sent to the hospital, my condition was critical. I was hooked up to tubes all over my body and barely hanging on with the help of a ventilator. She held our son and whispered in my ear, "Ethan, you don't really think I love you, do you? just using my family's money to study abroad and get a bit of so-called prestige. You really think you're a trophy now? You're just the son of a poor nanny. How could I possibly fancy you? I'm telling you, I married you just to get revenge on you. Who asked you to make the man I love the most go to prison and make us miss so many years? Your mother deserved it. Who asked her to be so talkative and inform my parents? She got what she deserved. Also, you don't know this, but Daniel, I was released from prison a year ago. When you were on business trips, I spent time with him. The son you love the most is also his child. I looked at her in disbelief and gradually couldn't catch my breath. Scenes from the past flashed through my mind, one by one, and all the images were confirming every word she said. No wonder the bride, that is, she was completely calm throughout the wedding, as if she were a bystander. No wonder she would always hang up the phone in a hurry when I talked to her during my business trips. No wonder when she had a difficult childbirth, she desperately insisted that I save our son. It turned out that she had always hated me. Our marriage had been her revenge on me from beginning to end. So in this new life, I will never interfere in her life again. If she wants to degenerate, then let her rot in the mire. Ethan, why didn't you help me? Ask for leave yesterday. As soon as she entered the classroom, Olivia asked me aggressively. I arrived early and was working on the last big question of the physics real exam questions. Seeing that I ignored her, Olivia forcefully snatched away the test paper, and the tip of the pen drew a long line on the test paper. Only then did I lift my eyelids to meet her angry gaze, and gently pulled the test paper back, saying, "Oh, I was in a hurry to do the questions yesterday and forgot. It's all your fault." The teacher directly told my parents, and they immediately called me from abroad. I was playing games in the arcade. I was so scared, she said. Fortunately, I knew you were unreliable and made to preparations. Thanks to the study committee member who testified for me, my parents let me off. I glanced at the study committee member sitting in the first row. She was quiet and introverted. Presumably, she was threatened by them. Olivia glared at me while I was burying myself in doing the questions a few times and said, unkindly, "Bookworm, what's the use of just being able to do questions? You're completely unreliable at critical moments." After saying that, she turned back angrily. I was desperately doing the questions to prepare for the physics competition in a month. In my previous life, I was so absorbed in doing practice questions to prepare for the physics competition that I forgot to eat and sleep. Just one day before the competition, Olivia begged me to go to the bar with her. At that time, I was soft and agreed while covering for her and hiding it from Olivia's parents. I watched her having fun drinking with Daniel. Now that I think about it, she just wanted to drag me into trouble and make me an accomplice. Olivia asked me to drink, and when I refused, she got angry. In the end, I had to obediently drink that glass of wine. As a result, I was allergic to alcohol, which caused me to perform poorly in the competition the next day and miss the opportunity to be recommended for admission to Stanford University. I still remember that Olivia said at that time, "Isn't it just a competition with your grades? Getting into a key university is a piece of cake, isn't it?" But later, my mother's death made me extremely sad, and I also failed in the college entrance examination. I could only get into a low-ranking university. I can't help but wonder what spell I was under that I could be so infatuated with such a person. Sure enough, on the eve of the competition, Olivia stopped me after school. "Ethan, can you accompany me to the bar tonight? With you there, my parents won't suspect me." I've even thought of the excuse. Let's say we're at tea. I interrupted her. "I can't go. Teacher Gabriel asked me to stay for some extra tutoring." This time, I specifically told Teacher Gabriel, who was in charge of the competition, in advance about the tutoring before the competition. He was a well-known strict teacher in the school. Olivia frowned and said, dissatisfied, "You only think about that competition. Am I not more important than a stupid competition?" When I heard this, it was as if I had heard a joke. The painful experiences in my previous life told me that I had regarded her as so important, licking her boots like a servant for so many years. But in the end, I ended up being cooked. I didn't have the patience to listen to her anymore. I picked up a stack of test papers and exercise books and got up to leave. Before leaving, I stared at her face thoughtfully and said, "I'm kindly reminding you that if you eat too many sweets, your face will get chubby." Olivia panicked and touched her face, asking her deskmate, "Have I really gotten fat? Oh no, what should I do if my mom finds out?" In the end, she still went to the bar for the appointment. I heard others talking about how much fun they had that night, but it had nothing to do with me anymore. The next day, I entered the physics competition examination room. Without the influence from my previous life and with my efforts in the past month, I was very smooth when doing the questions and had a clear train of thought. On the day the results were announced, the school specially posted the list. I stood in front of the bulletin board waiting for Teacher Gabriel to unveil the list. When I saw my name written behind the first place, the stone in my heart finally dropped. With my own efforts, I had changed the trajectory of my life. At least it wouldn't end up like it did in my previous life. The classmates who were looking at the list with me congratulated me one after another. The study committee member also gave me a thumbs up. Monitor, congratulations. You've been recommended for admission to Stanford University. In the corner of the crowd, Daniel hugged Olivia brazenly and cast a disdainful look at me. Olivia pouted and said, "So what if you've been recommended for admission to Stanford University? What's so great about it? You're still a bookworm that no one likes." She lowered her head and examined the nail polish on her fingertips. Her black eyeliner was slightly raised. "These days, I've been busy studying because of my cold attitude." Olivia also changed her seat and sat in the corner at the other end of the classroom. I don't know when she learned to wear makeup, got her ears pierced, and painted her nails. The rebellious girl is now completely different from the previously praised ballet fairy. This is all her own choice. In my previous life, even with my interference, she still chose to be rebellious without hesitation. I checked the date. Today is the day when Olivia's mother asked her to weigh herself, and she obviously forgot about it. No matter how arrogant Olivia was at school, she was equally embarrassed at home. Olivia's mother asked her to step on the scale, and then she panicked. Her weight was clearly overweight. Olivia's mother looked at her coldly. "Olivia, what's going on?" Olivia stammered and couldn't say anything. In the end, she could only cast a pleading look at me. Her eyes were like those of a fawn, wet. But I chose to ignore her and silently followed my mother to clean up. Seeing that Olivia couldn't explain clearly, her mother called the head teacher. The head teacher told her all the absurd things Olivia had done during this period. Olivia's mother's face became uglier and uglier. After hanging up the phone, she dragged Olivia into the study. My mother and I also sensibly returned to the servants' room. I knew very well what Olivia would face. When I first came to Olivia's house at the age of 7, Olivia was very cold to me at first. Until one day, I saw her curled up at the stairway, and there were red marks on her arms. I didn't dare to say anything and silently handed her a toffee. She didn't take it and said to me, "My mom doesn't let me eat candy. If I eat candy, I'll get beaten." I didn't understand why eating candy would lead to being beaten. The 7-year-old Olivia wiped away her tears and said, "Eating candy will make me fat. I can't get fat. I want to be the greatest ballet dancer in the world." So now does she still remember her childhood dream? Olivia was put under strict supervision. The head teacher would come to patrol at the door of the classroom after each class, and the whole class groaned in complaint. "I'm really fed up. Just because she's in a relationship, the rest of us are also being watched. We can't even do a little sneaky thing during the break. Damn it, she made my phone get confiscated." Olivia came over, kicked the leg of my desk, and threw me a folded note. I didn't know what it was for, and she said, "Ethan, could you help me deliver this to Daniel later? He'll be at the milk tea shop at the school gate in the afternoon. I'm being watched closely now and can't go out to find him at all." I pushed the note aside and said impatiently, "I'm not free. I need to do my exercises." Olivia took the note back and stamped her foot in a fit of anger. She tried to find someone else to help, but because she had been too arrogant before, and this time she dragged the whole class into trouble. She had very few friends. She could only run to the front row to find the study committee member who was easy to talk to. Seeing that the study committee member couldn't refuse, I said loudly, "Study committee member, the head teacher is calling us to the office." Only then did the study committee member get away and walk out of the classroom with me. On the way, the study committee member smiled gratefully at me. "Thank you, monitor." The study committee member has a good personality and studies hard. In the previous life, she was admitted to Capital Normal University and became a teacher loved by students. So, I don't want her to be involved in Olivia's mess in this life. In the previous life, it was because I always said yes to Olivia's requests that she kept taking advantage of me, and I ruined my own life. The physical education class, which is held once a week, is our rare time to relax, and it also gives Olivia a chance to secretly date Daniel. When I was tidying up the sports equipment with the sports committee member, I heard some faint noises coming from another classroom. "Daniel, it's all that damn shrew's fault for telling my mom. Now she keeps an eye on me after every class and also after school. You're so smart to let me sneak out during the PE class." Daniel chuckled and said, "Then do you want me to teach her a lesson for you? What are you going to do?" "How can I tell you that? Let's not talk about it for now. Can you come out and accompany me this weekend? I don't know if my mom is at home. If I really can't, I'll ask Ethan to cover for me." Daniel sneered, "TSK, that useless simp." I couldn't stand listening anymore, and both the sports committee member and I put down our things and left in a hurry. On the way back to the classroom, I kept thinking about how Daniel would deal with the head teacher in this life without my dissuasion and without my mother's interference. The person who reported the situation became the head teacher. Does this mean that I indirectly harmed her? With a worried heart, I ran to the office. Seeing me looking nervous, the head teacher patted me and said gently, "Ethan, what's wrong?" Looking at her highly protruding belly, I felt that my breathing was trembling. Teacher Emma, you need to be careful recently. What do I think it is? She smiled and said, you're worried that Daniel, that gangster, holds a grudge against me, right? Don't worry, I'll pay attention. Only then did I feel relieved and returned to the classroom. Olivia was applying makeup again with a small mirror. At the back of the classroom, when she saw me coming in, she gave me a dirty look. Looking at her degenerate appearance now, I couldn't help but wonder if she was willing to degenerate or if she was like this from the start. An accident still happened on a weekend before the final exam. The head teacher was in a car accident. When she was taken to the hospital, the baby in her belly couldn't be saved. It was also a drunk driving case, but the hit-and-run driver was someone else. So, was this really just an accident, or was there a hidden truth? In the end, the head teacher was left with disabled legs, her husband was not an ordinary person, and the drunk driver was directly sentenced to life imprisonment without supervision. Olivia started dating Daniel recklessly again. She even fell asleep during the final exam. Her grades plummeted, and during the winter vacation, she was locked up at home by her mother and couldn't go anywhere. In addition, Olivia's mother supervised her dancing practice at home every day. Olivia had an important dance competition during the Chinese New Year. It was said that there were master-level dancers as judges. If she could win the first prize, she might even become the judge's closed-door disciple. Therefore, Olivia's mother attached great importance to it and supervised her at home, in person. Without the pressure of the college entrance examination, I found a part-time job at a milk tea shop during the winter vacation to earn some living expenses. Coincidentally, I met Daniel at the milk tea shop where I worked part-time, but he was surrounded by several girls from outside the school. One of the long-haired girls looked somewhat familiar to me. She seemed to be from the same art training institution as Olivia. The long-haired girl leaned against Daniel's arms, and he playfully twirled her hair with his fingers. The girl asked, Daniel, why haven't you been lovey-dovey with your Olivia recently? A trace of impatience flashed in Daniel's eyes. Don't mention it. That woman is really boring. I took a fancy to her before because of her arrogance, but now she's like a pestering me every day. The girl rubbed against his chest opportunistically. Daniel kissed her and said, anyway, I'm tired of playing with her. You're much better. You know how to please me. It turned out that the man Olivia was infatuated with only regarded her as a simp. Thinking back on myself, who was a cannon fodder in the previous life, it was really pathetic. At this moment, Daniel received a call, and it was from Olivia. He answered the phone with a look of impatience on his face. What's the matter? I don't know what was said on the other end. But he suddenly showed a malicious smile and said to Olivia, if you're willing to give up that competition for me and come to meet me, I'll make up with you. After hanging up the phone, they burst into laughter. Is this silly woman really going to give up the competition for you? Who cares? Anyway, I'm just playing with her. Olivia, look at what kind of man you've fallen in love with. When I got home that day, I realized that neither of Olivia's parents were at home. I learned from my mother that they had gone on a business trip on short notice. Now my mother was asked to keep an eye on Olivia. After bringing dinner to Olivia in the evening, she hugged me from behind. My hand holding the tray trembled slightly. Ethan, I know you're the best to me. I'm begging you. Let me out, okay? Her pleading voice came from behind me. You're already an adult. You need to take responsibility for your own life. I pried her hands away. Door mercilessly. She knocked on the door hard and kept begging me. Ethan, I'm begging you. As long as you let me out, I'll do anything for you. I suddenly stopped in my tracks and asked her through the door. Olivia, do you know what kind of person you really like? I know you all think he's not good, but he's the one who's truly good to me. My parents are so strict with me. They won't let me do this or that, and they won't even let me eat sweets. It's him. He can give me a lot of sweets. Only he can make me feel loved. The more I listened, the more absurd it seemed. How disappointed her parents would be if they heard this. Although he's been a bit cold to me recently and has been flirting with other women. She knew about these things too, but I know he's just being angry with me. As long as I go to see him, he'll make up with me. Besides, how can those women compare to me? Daniel said with his own mouth that I'm the woman he loves the most. Seeing that she was so stubborn and refused to see reason, I shook my head and left. I told my mother not to interfere in her affairs and not to be soft-hearted and open the door for her. But the next day, we still found that she was gone. She tied the bed sheets into a rope and jumped out of the window on the third floor. Olivia's parents rushed back when they heard the news, and finally, we met her in the hospital. At this time, her legs were in casts, and her originally flowing long hair had been cut into a rough short style. There were tears all over her face, and her smoky makeup was all smudged from crying. I learned the general situation of what happened last night. Olivia jumped out of the building to keep the appointment. She limped to the bar but was humiliated by Daniel, who was hugging another woman. She was so angry that she fought with that woman. Finally, someone noticed that there was a lot of blood flowing between her legs and called an ambulance. Olivia's parents trusted me. and asked me to stay and try to reason with her. I sat by the bedside and watched as her fingers tightly grasped the bedsheets. "Ethan, am I really stupid?" she said. "He said he doesn't like girls who are too innocent, so I learned to paint my nails, wear heavy makeup, and even cut my hair myself. But yesterday, he told me that he likes girls like Scarlett O'Hara, with flowing long hair and a clean face without makeup. I was so angry that I fought with that woman, and Daniel didn't even help me. I gave up the competition for him, broke my leg, and ruined my future. How could he be so heartless?" I had nothing to say. She brought this result upon herself, but looking at her sorry state, I didn't feel any sense of pleasure at all. Olivia broke her leg before the competition and missed the chance to participate. What's even worse is that when she jumped out of the building, a sharp object accidentally pierced into her thigh. Since it wasn't treated in time, she would have to limp for the rest of her life. Her dancing career was completely ruined. I was so disappointed that she beat her legs every day and asked her why she had to be rebellious. Olivia's father would just shake his head and sigh helplessly every time he saw her. Later, Olivia's parents spent less and less time at home. I also heard that Olivia's mother was pregnant with a second child and they settled in another city. Olivia was completely abandoned. Olivia still went to and from school with me as usual, but she no longer had the capital to be proud and had become the laughingstock of the whole school. Since she had no friends, she could only follow me everywhere. We met Daniel in the milk tea shop and he taunted her. After being dumped by me, he said, "You went back to your ... He knocked on the table provocatively, his eyes full of mockery. "The used goods that I don't want are quite a match for you, a damned bookworm." I ignored him but saw Olivia beside me stand up. She glared at Daniel, holding the milk tea tightly in her hand. The next second, before Daniel could speak again, she threw the milk tea at his head. The sweet milk tea poured all over Daniel's head. Daniel was about to get angry but was persuaded by the owner of the milk tea shop. Olivia limped away alone, and extremely stubborn. Olivia borrowed my notes from various subjects. She had done a lot of excessive things to me, but out of the friendship between classmates and because of the financial support her parents had given me, I still helped her. It's a good thing that she can realize her mistakes. However, she had a poor foundation, and due to the previous incidents that had delayed her studies, it was very difficult for her to improve her grades. However, just before the last mock exam, her private photos began to spread on social media. She, who had been buried in her studies, heard the comments of her classmates and smashed that person's phone like a madman on the spot. She knew exactly where the photos came from. She immediately ran to the bar to settle the score with Daniel, the culprit. She slapped Daniel hard. How could Daniel stand losing face in front of his brothers? He pushed Olivia down to the ground heavily. "Daniel, you just wait for me." She dropped a harsh warning. The onlookers and Daniel laughed at her together. "You disabled girl, your parents don't want you anymore. What can you do to me?" On that afternoon, a police car drove into the campus. Everyone looked out of the window, and Olivia was directly taken away. During the class, I heard from others that Daniel was also arrested. The mastermind behind the head teacher's car accident was found out. Daniel bribed a man who had just been released from prison and asked him to drive and run over our head teacher. Fortunately, the head teacher was lucky enough to survive, but Daniel forgot that Olivia used to be the person closest to him, and she had all the evidence of his crimes in her hands. Since he chose to abandon her, she could only destroy him. In fact, before this, Olivia still had some illusions about Daniel. Otherwise, she wouldn't have handed over the evidence until now. Those photos that were flying all over the place completely shattered her illusions in this game of love. She chose to make both sides suffer. Daniel was arrested, and his family was also under investigation. The police followed the clues and found more evidence of the crimes committed by Daniel's family. It turned out that Daniel's father not only evaded taxes and laundered money, but was also involved in many human trafficking transactions. These criminal evidences were enough to keep the father and son in prison for the rest of their lives. It can only be said that, like father, like son. On the day the judgment of Daniel's family came out, the college entrance examination ended. Although I had already been confirmed for admission without taking the exam, I still took the college entrance examination as usual. I got the first place in the city in the exam. I hugged my mother and burst into tears. I finally didn't have to repeat the fate of my previous life. Now I have achieved success in my studies, and my mother is alive, safe, and healthy. I have rewritten my own destiny. The teacher held a celebration banquet for me, and the head teacher also came in a wheelchair. The study committee member performed steadily in this life and was admitted to Capital Normal University. She raised her glass and toasted me. Today, she took off her glasses, with curved eyebrows and a sweet and lovely smile. "Congratulations, Monitor, we can take care of each other in Beijing in the future." The study committee member's little face was blushing. I toasted back and drank it all in one gulp. When I put down the glass, I saw a hesitant figure outside the door. It was Olivia. Although she was very good at dancing before, she didn't have the talent for studying. In the end, she only passed the admission line for the second batch of undergraduate colleges in the college entrance examination. The liveliness in the private room fell into a few seconds of silence because of her arrival. Why does she still have the nerve to come? She made Teacher Emma end up like this. Stop it, stop it. Teacher Emma rolled her wheelchair to the door and gently took Olivia's hand. Come in. Teacher Emma, I'm sorry. The once arrogant little princess finally lowered her stubborn head. It's all in the past. Teacher Emma shook her head. As a mother, I will never forgive you, but as a teacher, I'm very happy to see you reform yourself. Olivia sat awkwardly in the corner, out of place with the liveliness of the rest of us. When it was time to divide the cake, I held a small piece of cake in front of her. Olivia burst into tears instantly. I knew what she was reminded of. A long time ago, I had also given her a piece of cake, but later she got lost in the deserts that Daniel gave her. Between being cared for and being rebellious, she chose to be rebellious. Her hand holding the cake was trembling, and tears streamed down like beads off a broken string. I don't know if she was regretting at that moment. It's a moment that she shouldn't have tasted, the sweetness of rebellion. Back then, she choked up and said, I wish you a bright future. After going to college, I earned a lot of money through part-time jobs and scholarships, and I brought my mother to Beijing. Later, I heard very little about Olivia's family. I only knew that Olivia went abroad under the arrangement of her parents.